Then here comes the liberal media. The liberal media. MSLSD. The Congo line of buffoons, as Mark Levin referred to them just a few days ago. Excuse me. I mean, MSNBC, they're all whack jobs on that station. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. They're nuts. They're buffoons. You can't take them seriously. Here's Joe Scarborough from the Morning Joe. I call it the Morning Joke. Commenting on this exchange between Feinstein and Cruz. Obviously, this liberal, this idiot, is going to defend Feinstein till the end, attack Ted Cruz. Let's listen to what this moron had to say.
So, did Ted Cruz not go to law school? Has he ever been to law school?
I believe he went to Harvard Law School.
So Ted, so did they?
All right, stop for 1 minute. Stop for 1 minute. Did you just hear how he started that sentence? Well, listen to that again.
Did Ted Cruz not? Did Ted Cruz not?
Did Ted Cruz not go to Harvard? No, I think he did go to Harvard. Wow.
So, did Ted Cruz not go to law school? Has he ever been to law school?
I believe he went to Harvard Law School.
So Ted, so did you? I don't know.
The law there?
Did they teach Ted Cruz to read what the Supreme Court said, especially in the landmark decision regarding Second Amendment rights over 200 years was written in 2008? Yes. And I'm just wondering, why would he use his seat on the Judiciary Committee, if he went to Harvard, to put forward a willfully ignorant statement about this bill violating the Second Amendment? Because it does not. And Ted Cruz knows it does not.
Stop for a minute, you idiot. How are you going to tell me that this isn't unconstitutional? It bans over 150 perfectly legitimate firearms from the American people. What part of shall not be infringed do you not understand, Joey? What part? He's ignorant? Ted Cruz is ignorant now? For defending the Constitution? For defending the liberties of the American people? That's ignorance. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, that's ignorant. Ted Cruz. Very, very, very ignorant man. Please continue, Schmo.
Who is he playing for? Is he playing for people who can't read? For illiterates? I don't understand. I'm not, there are a lot of people out there that support Ted Cruz's position that will say, this is not a violation of the Second Amendment. However, I have real concerns because you take this first step, the next thing you know, they're going to be trying to overturn Heller. They're going to be trying to get my shotguns. They're going to be trying to get my hunting rifles. I don't mean to go on and on here.
No, you make a good point.
But I am so shocked that he would continue to use his seat in the Judiciary Committee to just mislead millions of Americans and put forward a willfully ignorant position on what the Constitution says and what it does not say.
Oh, yes, yes. Have you read the Constitution, Joey? Anyone on MSLSD? Have you read the Constitution? Oh, I've read the Constitution. Yeah, what does the Second Amendment say, Joey? It says that our right to bear arms shall not be infringed. It is an unalienable right. Do you know what that means, Joey? It means that the government can't take it away. Which is what Diane Frankenfeinstein is doing. You get it? By the way, I don't know if you have a speech impediment or something, but that was pretty hilarious how you started out that sentence. Let's hear that again, just for your own personal entertainment.
Did Ted Cruz not? Did Ted Cruz not?
Funny stuff. Okay, moving on. He wasn't the only one, however. Chris Matthews. It's another lib to jump on board here and attack Ted Cruz, defending Dianne Feinstein. Let's listen to what Chris Matthews had to say about this exchange.
I don't understand how people can elect somebody like Ted Cruz. Here's a guy so far right, so unlimited in his notion of the Second Amendment that anyone should be able to have any kind of gun, and anybody that says you can't have any kind of gun is somehow limiting their rights under his view of the Constitution. In other words, Matt Dillon, Wyatt Earp, anybody ever said leave your gun out of town on the way into town had to be stopped in their tracks, because his view of the Constitution is the bad guys, the guys in the gangs, they had a right to carry their guns anywhere they want and any kind of gun they could get their hands on. And then he challenges a grown-up again, Dianne Feinstein, who I have enormous respect for, who watched her mayor die right in front of her, who's dealt with criminal matters her whole career. She's an expert on criminality.
Let's stop this for a minute. I have 2 points to make. First of all, is this guy like high on something right now? Seems a little jittery to me. Second of all, he keeps bringing up the point, and many of the liberals do this, by the way, that Dianne Feinstein has seen many deaths. She's witnessed many murders. And I'm still thinking to myself, who the hell cares? What does that have to do with the Constitution? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So let's rewind that. Let's rewind that clip. Here's Chris Matthews again. Maybe next time we should try decaf.
I don't understand how people can elect somebody like Ted Cruz. Here's a guy so far right, so unlimited in his notion of the Second Amendment that anyone should be able to have any kind of gun, and anybody that says you can't have any kind of gun is somehow limiting their rights under his view of the Constitution. In other words, Matt Dillon, Wyatt Earp, anybody ever said leave your gun out of town on the way into town had to be stopped in their tracks, because his view of the Constitution is the bad guys, the guys in the gangs, they had a right to carry their guns anywhere they want and any kind of gun they could get their hands on. And then he challenges a grown-up again, Dianne Feinstein, who I have enormous respect for, who watched her mayor die right in front of her, who's dealt with criminal matters her whole career. She's an expert on criminality, and have her lectured to by this far-out character. Your view of what this has come to, this gun discussion. I think it's so polarized between the middle, reasonable middle, and the far right, it's hopeless.
Well, Chris, not only is Ted Cruz an extremist, he's also overbearing, arrogant, and condescending.
Thank you.
Yes. Condescending, arrogant. That was some other schmuck that he had on. By the way, I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched Chris Matthews on television. I'm sure 99.9% of you have not, because you have good taste. The guy seems like he spits a lot when he talks. Doesn't he? I mean, I don't know if you could hear it in that clip, but it sounded like with every sentence that he said, spit was flying out of his... I mean, did you hear him? Let's play some of that again. Listen. It sounds like he's like Daffy Duck from Looney Tunes.
Enormous respect for her, who watched her mayor die right in front of her, who's dealt with criminal matters her whole career. She's an expert on criminality, and have her lectured to by this far-out character. Your view of what this has come to, this character.
Oh, yes. Yes, Chris Matthews. You know what we should do? We should get one of those spit shields, you know, that singers use. We should just strap it to Chris Matthews, strap it to his jaw, so then he just walks around with it, doesn't spit on anyone. This guy's a nut. But I guess that's why MSLSD hired them. Then we have someone from my state of Connecticut, our senator, the creep politician known only as Chris Murphy. Again, Chris Murphy, most of you probably have never heard of this guy. He's this liberal whack job senator from my state of Connecticut. Appeared on Andrea Mitchell's show, another whack job. And he also had some things to say about Ted Cruz, once again defending Dianne Feinstein.
Well, joining me now is Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy. I brought my handy Constitution today, Senator, just to make the point that this was not a fair fight. Because Ted Cruz somehow thought he was going to take on Dianne Feinstein, who began her career in politics, facing the bloodshed in San Francisco when she was elevated to become the mayor after the assassinations there. The personal experience of Dianne Feinstein informs this, and the personal experience of being a senator from Connecticut and representing as a congressman the Newtown area certainly informs you.
Stop. I don't get it, folks. I really don't get the connection they're trying to make between personal experience, quote-unquote, and knowing the Constitution. Where's the connection? She's seen murders, she's seen people killed in her state. What does that have to do with the Constitution? So what, if I go out on the street and see someone die, I automatically know everything about the Second Amendment? I have the authority to tell people how to defend themselves, what weapons they can and cannot carry, because I witnessed a murder? Does that make any damn sense? Let's continue with these two lunatics.
You on this issue.
No, that's absolutely right. And the fact is that when this tragedy hit Newtown, I was there at the firehouse that day as families watched and waited for their kids to come back, and they didn't show. And when we realized what had happened, I had far too many colleagues that I could call to ask for advice on how I could be relevant to the healing process. There are just way too many cities, way too many schools, way too many communities that have gone through this. And, this is not a fair fight for a number of reasons. It's not a fair fight because Ted Cruz is not going to beat Dianne Feinstein on a question of constitutionality, but it's not a fair fight because there's just no question about whether or not the assault weapons ban is constitutional. Why do we know that? Because we had it in place for 10 years in this country, and it was never declared unconstitutional.
Right,
and just like
what is he talking about? We've had it in place for 10 years. There's no question as to whether or not this law is constitutional. We've never banned magazines. We've never put limits on bullets before. I can't remember a time where any politician in this country banned 150 plus perfectly legitimate firearms. What is he talking about? I'm ashamed to say that this moron is from my state of Connecticut, Chris Murphy. The libs are scared, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that's what it all comes down to. They're terrified.
Factor Talk Radio.